Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the M&E Drop-In. I'm your host, Moj, and today I'm joined by not one, but two special guests. This episode will be focused on digital transformation in the built environment, and I'm joined by Matt and Rob from Staht. How are you guys doing? Thank you for coming here.
Yeah, pleasure. Good to be here.
Thanks for inviting us.
No problem. Rob, let's start with you. Can you please give us an introduction to who you are and what you do, please?
Yeah, so my name's Rob Hurst.
Yes.
I'm the managing director at Staht, and we started this business 3 years ago, and I'm purely focused on engineering, development, sales of Staht product.
Mm-hmm. Matt, what about you?
Yeah, my name is Matt Roden. I'm the CTO of Staht, and my background is completely different. I'm not in engineering at all, but in enterprise line of business software. So a very different set of skills, but really contributing to that technology in the built environment.
Mm-hmm. So how did you two end up working together?
Oh, shall I answer that?
Yeah, why not?
Okay, so in a previous life, I was the global product manager at 3M for engineered systems. Mm-hmm. That was a global role. I was also European engineering manager on the engineering side. And we faced some significant challenges in terms of software and app development for some of the fall protection equipment and the calculation software that were required. And it'd been sidelined for almost 20 years, this particular project. So, I found Matt and we worked together on a project probably over the course of one to 2 years, maybe.
Yeah, and in fact, I think it's still running to this day. And I guess really that was my first foray into how enterprise systems can aid in the efficiency and planning of complex problems using physics and math within the construction domain. And me and my team at the time, I had a company of 30 software engineers, really tackled that problem and enjoyed working on it.
Okay, so tell me a bit more about this project and how that started.
Sure.
Shall I take this?
Yeah, go ahead, yeah.
My core skill is really in mechanical engineering, design and ideas. Yeah. But no man is an island, really. So Matt and I then started to work together on the digital side, bringing a physical product digitally into that environment. Mm-hmm. And I'd say there's a lot of key skills that go into creating a digital product. And we're 3 years into that journey now, and the development is continuous. And that's what's great from our side, because even though you've got hardware product, the software, the firmware, the digital side continues to develop, and we continue to push updates and publications out there, which is really, really exciting from a dynamic user's perspective.
Yeah. I mean, I'll drill in, I guess, to the tech bit a little bit. So I guess one key thing to say is, aside from the core pull tester itself, where the digital transformation of this product really cuts into the market. So many people looking at a platform like we're developing would imagine that exists over and over again in the market, and there's lots of providers of that. And that's true, but not in the mid-market. There are a lot of enterprise platforms and large multinational incumbent suppliers creating digital transformation products for the construction and built environment sector. However, those platforms are largely inaccessible to the mid-market. The SMEs, the one-man bands, the two in a van, up to the SMEs and through to the mid-market. And so we've really tried to create a product that enables our customers to access true digital transformation and efficiency without the huge hundreds of thousands of pounds price tag that it would cost them to do it in a bespoke way.
So what made you think that there was a need for that? Why did you have such a passion to create this product?
Yeah, so, I mean...
Can I tell
Rob,
you?
yeah,
you can
take that one, Rob.
I mean, it's very, very simple, really. If you're going to go to site and you're going to install something, then really you need validation. You need to test that something that you've done. Now, typically that will be done either not at all or done in an analog fashion.
Yeah.
So if you're going to install it, you really need to record it and test it. And that recording piece really needs to go out and be evidenced in the marketplace. Otherwise, it's just lost in the ether. And if it's lost in the ether, when are you ever going to refer back to that? Someone's going to ask a question, and you won't be able to evidence it. So that's the beauty about digital. It's there. You can share it within, well, probably 5 seconds of me doing an on-site test mood. You would have that on your laptop in PDF digital format that you could share. So it's all recorded, which is beautiful from a data perspective and a data sharing perspective.
It just makes sense,
100%, yeah.
So you've talked about the product a little bit, but for the audience's sake who might not know exactly what it is, can you just explain it in a bit more detail, please?
Yeah, so the Staht digital pull tester performs a tensile load on fixings, fasteners and eye bolts, essentially, for predominantly into the construction sector, or I guess into the fall protection sector is where it's predominantly used by our customers. What it does, it provides a tensile load to verify that a fixing or an eye bolt is good, performs in the substrate as per the European technical approval. Now, there's a whole load of different fastener types out there. The biggest challenge, I'd say, really, is the skill base of the people installing it and the quality of the substrate. How often do you get to site and you say, well, we've got an ETA for this product, what is the substrate? Can you tell me what the substrate is? And that's really when the pull testing or the proof load testing or allowable resistance testing comes into its own. It's that workflow to verify that that fixing or eye bolt is good. Really, really important.
Construction in general is quite a slow-moving industry, as we know. And people tend to have a very set mindset on things. So how did you manage to kind of get this moving and actually start developing this?
Yeah, so we were self-funded to start with, and then we were fortunate enough to get a UK Innovate grant for the technology and development of the product, which is just fantastic in terms of how we moved the product forward, how we accelerated, how we got the skills in-house to develop this. Every aspect that you look at on that tester, from all the metal aspects to the PCB to the screen, everything is our product, even through to the digital side. So you've got to have that and got to have all the skills in-house to do that and take ownership of the technology. That's the gold.
So the digital pull tester is just one example of digital transformation that particularly impacts the M&E sector. From your perspective, how do you think technology will impact the M&E sector moving forward? You know, with recent legislation and the golden thread and Judith Hackett's recommendations.
Yeah, well, I think you see evidence in other places of connected technology in the construction sector. There's connected tools and things coming from some of the major manufacturers, which is good for servicing and traceability. And I certainly feel that the guys on site are seeing the benefits of that, but it's very, very early days. What I'd like to say really is that what tends to happen is compliance drives the technology. So that people are forced to do it initially, then they start to see and feel the benefits. Then when they adopt those benefits, they get to then differentiate within the sector against their competitors. So you can add professionalism, quality, value, and speed, ultimately. Because if you've got the speed and you can show, test, and report something, and you can share that data, the project moves on faster. And if the project moves on faster, you hit the deadline and everyone saves. And you also avoid health and safety incidents, which is really a showstopper. So for me, it's early days, but this is the right time to get into this. From a compliance side, from an M&E side, from the traceability side, the golden thread is just real shining light and a great example of how things should move forward.
Yeah, I think it's one of those things where it seems like it might be a burden to M&E contractors and tier 1 contractors. Oh, we have all this that we need to worry about, we need to digital. But then, like you said, once they start reaping the benefits, then maybe, hopefully, the mindset will change in the industry. What about you, Matt? What's your opinion on this?
Yeah, so my background in enterprise software actually, funnily enough, serves a lot of very slow to move markets. So marine governance, compliance systems, finance, all these sectors are behind the curve and are having to catch up quickly. Construction happens to be one of the industries that's the slowest to move. And in terms of the opportunity that Rob highlighted, really right now, if we put the past aside and say construction sort of 5 years, 10 years behind in terms of technology adoption than other industries, and say where we are now, there is pressure on companies not only to innovate. So digital transformation is a bit of a buzzword, and every CTO and every construction and M&E company is keen to tick that box.
Yeah.
But it's more than that. There's pressure to adopt standards which force companies to do better from a compliance, from a regulation, from a governance side, from operational efficiency overall, right down to how the workforce is managed, how testing, we're in the NDT space, how testing is managed. So I think over the next 1 to 2 years, there's going to be effectively a situation where the speed of growth of technology is pulling the construction industry forward, and it will really be a do or die situation. So the companies that do innovate and do adopt digital platforms or digital devices will reap the benefits of that from a market adoption perspective, from a monetary standpoint. But on the flip side of that, those who don't will either be driven out through compliance and regulation. They won't be able to meet the standards required and assumed by regulatory bodies and by customers, or their competition will just be that much more efficient than them that they will overtake their position in the market. So it's a really important time.
Thank you, Matt. That's really insightful.
Yeah.
The only thing is, I can imagine from the M&E contractor's perspective, considering their small budgets, and smaller companies in general, one of their reservations might just be technology is expensive and that's that, and I can't afford it. What would you say to that? How might they adopt it?
Yeah. So there's a few different lenses at which you can look at that question. I think the first thing to say is that you can't afford not to adopt technology, and so the costs of not adopting technology are huge. Yeah. And historically, that was always the argument. And the counter argument is we physically can't afford the £200,000-300,000 it costs to develop a platform, an app. And we're not just talking about pull testing here. We're talking about the wider application of digital technologies within the M&E sector. So this has always been a problem. It costs companies a lot of money to develop bespoke applications for their particular horizontal or niche within their vertical. And in this case, we're talking about M&E. And the answer to that has been long established, but not in construction, funnily enough, and that is software as a service. So platforms that can serve multiple different use cases and applications within one vertical. And essentially what we're talking about is the commoditization of software development. So bear with me, what does that mean? So we have developed something called Staht Connect. And this is a good example. It's a shameless plug, but it's a really good example of the kind of thing that can allow these smaller companies to benefit from a digital platform without the huge price tag. So we have a pull tester. It's digital. We developed a platform behind that serves it. That platform is called Staht Connect, and it's not just built for pull testing. Okay. It's built to be able to support any kind of sensor that you might have in your non-destructive testing, for example, or measurements or monitoring environment within M&E. Plug it into an app or a continuous monitoring cloud workflow, and harness that data downstream on our platform. So that all sounds a little bit fuzzy, but really what we're talking about is capturing data for audit and compliance, analysis and reporting on that data, monitoring, alerts, triggers, rules engines, And then downstream of that, companies will soon be knocking on the door of lots of software houses to say, how do I access AI? And of course, that question's pretty premature for most companies who don't even have their data in check. So you start with a platform like ours.
Yeah.
We invest in those technologies for you, and then you license that in a commoditized way through our platform. And that's essentially historical software as a service, but brought to the M&E sector. So we're building in AI tools, business intelligence tools, machine learning, all the things that are going to be big buzzwords, and there'll be a million CTOs at small companies just praying for this technology and not being able to afford to access it. And that's where companies like us come in.
Thank you, Matt. That was really insightful. So I guess when we're looking at legislation and regulations in general, it might all seem a bit forced, but not when you look at the bigger picture. So when we're talking about the purpose behind it all, why should M&E contractors care to implement regulations and all of this into their projects and their growth strategies?
Yeah, I mean, I guess one of the classic reasons for project overrun is health and safety issues, compliance on site, incorrect fixings being used in the wrong place, work having to be redone. So from our perspective, really, getting the right work methods in place and recording them digitally alleviates that. It helps alleviate it. It's sort of like health and safety. You can't really avoid that or take it away, and ultimately it helps to develop and deliver that end project. So I'd say construction is still adopting it. I'll reference for protection. I've been involved in writing British and European standards. And if we go back 10, 15 years, those standards would have been 10 pages long, and it was a small but growing marketplace. Still in the millions, but small but growing marketplace. When we rewrote those standards 3 or 4 years ago, they've gone from 10 pages to 115 pages. Wow. And the people that are installing that equipment are required to understand what that means for them, for their business, for their customers, and they have to be professional. And that industry is moving on. And you need to understand that, and digital technology forms part of the understanding of that and providing the evidence base. So many companies like ours are taking those standards and thinking, how does our product apply? Okay. How can the M&E contractors use that technology to get them through that compliance sector? Which is really, really important, because the big businesses, Balfour Beatty, NG Bailey, companies like that, we're going to be asking those questions. Yes. And if you don't adopt, if you're not an early adopter, you'll fall behind and your business will ultimately suffer.
Technology platforms are a really good softener for adherence to frameworks and governance and compliance systems. So, Rob's saying that those standards are now 100 pages long. You can't really adhere to that on a spreadsheet anymore. You need workflows and systems in place to allow your workforce a governed framework, a digital framework, in which they can reliably and procedurally follow those expected governance standards. And so the adoption may seem costly at first, but when you consider getting your entire workforce to follow a 100-page standard without the right digital platform in place, then you'll really discover what cost is.
Yeah. So when talking about your product specifically, and there's an app that comes with it, right? So the data automatically comes up with a report, right? So if we're talking about the golden thread, how would the M&E contractor then use that data? Is it literally just the report itself is within the golden thread?
I'll talk a little bit about the app and the report, and Matt, I'm sure, will build onto the cloud piece and how that works. In its basic form, the app will take live test data via Bluetooth from the digital product. So you see a live graph, it's recording all that data. You're taking photo evidence, you've got a GPS location, and then you've got the graph data, so 10 times a second you're taking all that data. It's essentially immutable data. It's there, it's recorded. It's recorded, and as soon as you finish that test, it's recording all that data into the cloud.
Okay.
So Mood, you would see that data live on your PC. And actually the technology's moved on so far that you could actually see the test that I'm doing live from your desk.
Cool.
So really the app does all that cool stuff. It works online and offline as well. So as long as you've got that Bluetooth connection, you can do it. So then that really leads into the cloud piece, how that looks and what can you do with that data once you've recorded it.
Yeah. I think data and how you can use it is quite a broad subject, but if we talk about the kind of things that our customers want to do with that data, so the scenario is you've digitally recorded, in this case, pull tests.
Yes.
You have synced that data to the cloud automatically. What is the data? So Rob mentioned it includes auditable data points, geolocation, the time, the person performing the test, the signature to confirm it was that person, photo, video, rich media. So already that's a wealth of information that wouldn't traditionally be available. And then we package that up into a report for the customer, and that report can be sent on to a customer without needing to print something off or process it through back office and so on and so forth. So again, we're already light years ahead of the current available technologies. But then comes the cool stuff and the stuff that people don't really know they necessarily need yet. So we record granular data. So for example, our pull tester, we record data at 10 hertz, every data point about that pull test in a huge degree of detail. And so, okay, I don't need that right now. I just need a report for my customer. Brilliant. Going down the line, you'll be able to analyze that data to look for trends, analysis, minor movements in the pull of a bolt, where that was, why that happened. Let's correlate it to weather patterns. Let's use AI to spot the questions that we don't already know to ask, and then layer that with business intelligence tools that already exist. And suddenly you have a really valuable source of data for your customers, for you, for fixings manufacturers, to be able to get real insight. And that's what I find cool. So the basics of enterprise workflows are not sexy, they're required, and everyone's behind. Get that in place, get up to speed, and you'll be able to stay on trend with all the technologies that are available. And the hot one is AI. I mean, the things that we will be able to tell you about your workflows using AI in the next couple of years, we can't hypothesize right now, and that's the point.
Speaking of AI, we don't want to go down the rabbit hole too much, but it's a huge topic at the moment. So, considering your background, I'm sure you know a lot about it. So why don't you tell us a bit about it and your thoughts, and maybe how it can help the construction industry as well?
Yeah, I think that there's a few things to say about AI which are interesting. So it's topical. Let's start with it's topical.
Okay.
And if you go to BBC Technology News, it's the first thing you're going to see is it's scary. They're coming to get us. AI will kill the planet. So
it is a bit scary.
Yeah. So are those things true? A little. But let's talk about the positives of that.
Yes.
So the first thing is to say that people generally, because it's so overhyped, people generally then think it won't apply to them. It's like a cutting edge fringe technology. Not in my business. I'm not going to use it. I don't need it. And we see this pattern repeat every 10 years or so of those same people saying, it's fringe, I'm not going to use it, I wouldn't get any value from it. How does that apply to me? And then some hype in the press, and people just get really numb to the mention of these buzzwords. So we've seen it across cryptocurrency, blockchain, right? Web3, and so we're on AI. AI is significantly different to anything we've seen really since the mass adoption of the internet. And a really good example I get asked all the time by lots of different people, will AI really take off? And the answer is funny. That question's funny because it already has.
Yeah.
It's not going to stop. And the people who don't think it'll apply in their business are the same archetype of person who 20 plus years ago was saying that they wouldn't use email in their company because what's wrong with a letter, or I do all my business on the phone. And of course, of those people, the people who still had a long career ahead no longer did, or they had to have a real steep learning curve, or those businesses just sort of naturally did not evolve. And that's, I guess, the key point is how can AI help my business? And I guess most people watching this will be a sort of a M&E business audience. How can my business benefit from AI? Is it just going to take my company away? Can it do what I already do? So the answer to the last question is yes, it will. It can't obviously do manual construction, but on the I'm going to offend a whole bunch of people all at once. So on the design, on the architecture, on the CAD, on the manufacturer, will it do it better and more efficiently? Absolutely, yes. How will it do that? Well, it's gathering all of the best data from all of the best people who have ever done those things and learning. So it is based on our knowledge, our inventions, our innovation, but it will go at light speed, exactly.
Yeah.
And so AI can be used within organizations to make initially the things we already do more efficient. It can augment the ability of people who already do things to do them faster. And that doesn't mean making that person work harder or changing all their targets. It means actually assisting people within industry to do things in a more operationally efficient way, to the point where they might have to do less work, which is obviously the nirvana. And so when we talk about operational efficiency, really we're just attacking that segment in the first instance of, okay, let's actually digitize your data and let's report on it. And that already creates a huge operational efficiency. The final or the next step from that is once your data is digitized orderly within a framework adhering to governance, you can then use artificial intelligence to learn from your data and other people's data to do the things you already do in a more efficient way.
Yeah.
So it's those kind of fluffy answers that make people think that it'll never apply, but it will. And the problem with AI is it will, like, not in 5 years, next year. I mean, the speed is ridiculously fast. So if we don't have massive industrial change by the end of next year because of AI, I'll be very surprised.
But what about the people who claim, AI is going to cost me my job? Rob, you're an engineer. What do you say to that? What do you think of AI?
Yeah, I mean, listen to Matt's points is a bit scary, isn't it? Matt, could it design and create a fixing, like an ME fixing? Could it do that?
Yeah. I mean, and that seems like a flippant answer, yes. But yes, and I guess here's the detail. So can it go off and research widely to try and understand a topic and understand even the physics of what you're asking it to do? Yes. Can it use software packages? Yeah. And could it output a CAD file for a fixing?
Yeah.
Yes. Can it then apply other software packages to test that fixing for stress analysis or whatever? Yeah. Yes. And then so can it sign off on it itself? Absolutely. Could it then send that drawing out for manufacture in a tender process and select the best prices? and then
would it go to a human at the end, or would it just go to a robot who would then make
I guess it
the
doesn't
part?
really matter, does it? I mean, robots do make the parts, right? Because this machinery
machines
process,
do.
And who loads that machine? A human typing instructions into a computer. So does any of that need a human? Probably not. I guess that's the sensation.
So we're useless, basically.
No, and that's the sensation.
I think at some point it needs a quality check. There's so many things of command along that line.
Yeah. I mean, the AI would probably say that that it needs to quality check any human involved in the process, right? But
Possibly.
That's the sort of sensationalized point. In reality, are we there? No. We quickly people will come up with processes like that end to end that are AI driven. There always needs a human to imagine what that is and to understand a process. And could that be completely autonomous at some point? Yeah, and it probably will be. But that, in a way, is exciting. So the counter question posed, or your original question, in fact, is, okay, so everyone loses their jobs. It's not quite as black and white as that. And every time there's been some kind of revolution in technology or the industrial revolution or whatever it might be, lots of people sit there and say, oh, great, like this machine does what this mechanical machine does what I did, so I now lose my job. But of course, the people who innovate around their role and innovate their role around their understanding of what technology can do better, excel and succeed. And if we look at the business climate, the businesses that are going to do the best over the next few years are those who hold their hands up and say, what we do is not irreplaceable. So let's figure out how we use technology to help us do this more efficiently. And there will be people losing their jobs and layoffs, but there's also a huge opportunity in that. There's a huge opportunity for businesses to retrain staff around those technologies. And there's a huge opportunity for individuals, people even watching this, to go and even just play with ChatGPT. Go and arm yourself with what is this and how does it work, and then start to drive innovation into their companies. And I guess another shameless plug, but we're trying to create like platforms, foundation layers in which you can actually. You got to start somewhere, right? You can't just start with a company that's dealing with clipboards and paper and say, let's apply AI to this. You have to start with some kind of process of digitizing data and workflows. And from there, you can then start to drive adoption of these sort of AI.
Wow. Oh, that is so fascinating. But let's not scare our audience too much on AI. There was one question I did want to ask related to the product. So as of now, testing is usually carried out either by manufacturers or distributors or testing organizations. Do you see that moving towards becoming the contractor's responsibility to do the testing themselves?
I think AI will do that as well. Want to do that as well, Matt?
It's going to come and get you.
Okay, so if we talk about a range of our customers, really, we've got construction fixing manufacturers such as yourselves. You've got testing companies out there doing testing. You have some contractors going out there doing it, some compliance and third-party bodies doing it. The answer to that question is that when people see the relevance of it, when they see if you're a competent person, you've been on a relevant training course, maybe from the Construction Fixing Association, and you've understood the code of practice and the relevance of the golden thread, then with proper training and a great use of a digital product, it can actually really walk you through that testing process. It's almost like taking a calculator into a maths test. In the right hands, with the right training, it's a very relevant product. And actually what it does is it helps you deliver and move the project on fast enough. The BS 8539 is really the code of conduct and the go-to standard, and it is adopted and copied globally in Singapore and Australia through different standards organisations. And the CFI offer a sort of a great service in condensing that information into bite-sized chunks.
Okay, thank you. Last question. If someone had an idea on technology or a digital product that they feel is suitable for the construction sector, what would your advice be for them, considering you've done that now?
It's certainly a fun learning experience to take your idea and try and sort of productionize it and getting it to market. Plenty of research, a great network. I would say give us a call, bang on our door, because we've got sort of like a white label platform which you could also plug into. because the biggest challenge for us is not necessarily manufacturing the product. It's that continuous improvement through the software, the firmware. That is a constantly moving thing.
Yeah.
So I would encourage them because it's a great, exciting workspace. Matt, have you got anything to add in that?
Yeah, I mean, definitely lots of research. I'm a little more gung-ho, so my answer would be don't wait. If you're solving any significant problem within any industry, but M&E for sure, because it's had less problems solved than other industries through technology now. Then don't wait, just do it, because in a year's time someone else will have done it. So I mean,
and then I'd like to add something else to that. You got to be prepared to fail. So being creativity is the most important piece in this. So going over and over the same problem has benefit, but you'll reach a point where you have to commit, you have to spend money, and you have to fail. The pull test we've created looked nothing like version 1. Version 1 was a complete beast. So you have to be prepared to fail it, break it, and go for it. In all aspects.
Yeah.
In the software, the hardware, everything.
Thank you, Rob. That's really interesting. And actually, it's quite reminiscent of something we've been working on called Dynamics, which is, just for the audience, it's an online bracket configurator, which is currently in development. It's in testing with certain organizations in M&E. So if you'd like to find out a bit more about that, just check out our website or drop us a message and we'll let you know. But you guys have been the most wonderful guests. Thank you so much, honestly. This has been really, really interesting, and I feel like I've learned a lot. So thank you.
Great.
And you're welcome back anytime on the podcast if you'd like to.
Awesome.
Thank you very much.
Yeah,
It's been great. Thank you for inviting us.
No
It's
problem.
been superb.
Thank you. So thank you for watching. We hope this has been insightful for you too. It certainly has been for me. Don't forget to check out our last episode on our page and follow the M&E Drop-In for more episodes and hopefully more interesting guests like these. Thank you. Bye. Is that okay?
Boom.
Woo.
Well done, boys.
Woo.